Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Wayward Pines. So, at the end of time, I had probably mentioned before where you can go and see this show. Check out the pilot, and you'll know exactly where to watch this if you're interested in it now, after episode dos. So, going into this town is still weird, but also there's bizarrish rules that bizarrely weren't there before in this town. That everyone is to spout to this new guy, Ethan, and he's just like, well, I didn't know. They didn't give me a newsletter. They didn't, staple it on my forehead. They didn't, give me, hey, here's some rules. Here you go. Here. No one had told Ethan there were rules in this town. But also, no one told him that no one cares about a dead body in this town either. Because, good God, we have Ethan who's just like, hey, Sheriff Pope, there's a dead body right there. And Sheriff Pope is like, yeah, I'll get right on it. Believe me, I'll send out top men. And Ethan's like, well, who? And the Sheriff Pope is like, top men, believe me. It's getting done. Right now, believe me, I'm sending people out, a billion. I just have a billion people to send out. They'll take that body and just, handle it like it's nobody's business. And just get to the bottom of this murder of quite possible person. And so, Ethan is really just, he's spending a lot of time with Beverly in this episode, but he's also going around and starting to ask people questions, because eventually Ethan is to ask Kate about Evans, because it's hey, if anything, I came here looking for you, Kate, and looking for Bill, and it seems like I came here and only one of you are still alive. What the heck is that about, you know? And so Kate is just well, Bill did have a wife, and maybe you should go and ask her about some things, find out some stuff, maybe do some investigating, because technically you're a super secret, super delicious investigator, and you should go out there and just ask some people some things. So, eventually, Ethan is to come back to the sheriff, and the sheriff is just you know what, I am questioning a lot of people right now, and you know what, I have some huge suspicions going down about a lot of people in this town, believe me. Whether they're imaginary or not, believe me, I am going to question some folks. Things are going to get done in this town. I want you at ease, Burke, so much so that you're going to consistently stay in your hotel room so I don't have to hear a peep from you again. Go into your hotel room, stay there forever. Just die of hotel old age. And just, because the sheriff is just so, he's tired of Ethan so much so that he's you know what, how about I, just put you in a cell? Could I just put you in a cell? I just don't want to, you and you're just bickering about me not going and doing what you want to do. Good God, man. Just go ahead and sit in a cell for a while. Just enjoy the time that we've had. I sat in a cell and I ate my coveted, consistent, rum raisin frickin' ice cream, and I enjoyed my time. So Ethan is to, eventually just try to question people, and eventually Beverly is to tell Burke a little bit more about some things that she's figured out about this town, or some stuff that she's realized. And there's obviously, there are some people that have been in this town so long that who they think is the president isn't actually the president. Who they think is, the year or anything, it's all completely wrong. There's nobody that knows about certain, big, current events. They're just I don't know. Also, Ethan at one point is to ask for the newspaper, and supposedly the newspaper hasn't come in like 2 weeks because like news in this town has been so slow. Yeah, because nobody really does anything in this town. Because it's all going to be like magazine. It's going to be basically all ads for like, hey, still go to this store that you're supposed to go to anyways because there's nothing better for you to do. But Ethan, I guess, does have money, but it is also like bizarrely like a counterfeit kind of money, and as if like they're making their own bucks in this town. But yeah, so I don't know what Ethan is going to do for work, but like he's working on ticking a lot of people off in this town, that's for sure. So, but with that said, I think I can go into spoilers because I've kind of teed it up for people. I do really still enjoy this town. Eventually, there are some interesting interactions for this episode that are eventually to keep people on edge. Like, to just be like, man, I want to figure out more about this town. This is freaking weird. This show was, like, weird. But, like, it's just, like, if anything, like, I don't think we get into, like, I think there was a lot of stalling going on in this episode, too. Like, it gave us a little sliver of answers, but, like, to just tell us that, like, basically, like, you better just know your role and shut your mouth, or, like, you're gonna end up quite possibly, not having a long residence in this town. If you know what I mean. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, anyways, so I think it's that coveted double 5-time territory to go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. So, I don't know what I was doing there. I was like karate chopping the... Oh no. Let's go into it. So, very beginning of the episode, or roughly in the beginning, somewhere in the vicinity of episode, we have Ethan Burke, who's just like, well, I want to know a thing about this town still. Like, I'm very freaking confused. So, Ethan is to want to know, like, stuff, and Sheriff Pope is just like, you know what, like, you're never gonna get out of this town, so, like, how about you just kind of just, like, live here. Just live. just live. Because, like, Sheriff Pope is going to seemingly want to arrest Ethan for stealing this car, but the sheriff doesn't actually arrest him because he stole a car in the very tail end of the last episode. And so Sheriff Pope is to, like, tell Ethan, it's like, you're never going to get out of here. That's one of the rules. And so, like, one person on the bike is just like, tra-la-la-la-la, ding-ding. And so Sheriff Pope is like, hey, Larry and other kid, Ethan, or something that I don't remember the name of. And so, like, hey, Sheriff Pope. It's like, yeah, Ethan, don't get out of here, because that's the one rule. That's the one rule of Fight Club. Don't talk about you leaving because it's not going to happen. Believe me. First rule of whatever the Wayward Pines. You don't talk about leaving because it's not going to happen. So, and we'll find out all the other rules, bizarrely, when Ethan is to go into Kate's toy shop. All of a sudden that she's a toy shop maker. Okay, sure. Anyways, so Ethan is to, like, I guess there's a certain set of rules that he isn't aware of because he's new in town. And so Sheriff Pope is just telling Ethan, how about you just go into your hotel room and just never leave? Like, just stay in there, like, or room service, just stay in there. Just stay. Like, you're on basically house arrest, pretty much. Like, just stay, just go ahead and just stay in there. Because Sheriff Pope is to, like, still be asked by Ethan about the body of Evans, and like Sheriff Pope is like, dude, I have that handled. Like, if anything, top men are coming to look over his body, and that is going to be squared away, believe me. And so Ethan is like, oh, so really, is he going to be, like, really just looked over? And Sheriff Pope is like, yes. Like, me and my rum raisin ice cream are just gonna, like, are just gonna take care of it. It's gonna be squared away. So Ethan is not trusting any lick of any of these people, and so the sheriff is to eventually, like, pretend to almost, like, arrest Ethan, and the sheriff is almost accusing Ethan of killing Evans, like, mentioning that, like, hey, maybe you killed Evans, maybe I should arrest you and, like, put you to prison for the rest of your life, because maybe you just murdered Evans, like, maybe that's what I should just say that you did, because you're the only one who found a body in this town. But anyways, so Ethan is to go out, and he is to, like, try to talk to Beverly, and Beverly is to just be like, oh, okay, well, how about we both, like, I just really have a hankering to put on some really loud music, and how about me and you just do a little tango over here? How about you and me just do a little salsa? How about you and me just do this thing called dancing, if people remember how to do that? So, both Ethan and Beverly, Beverly is telling Ethan, like, hey, like, we need to be really quiet when we talk. There's microphones, like, all over this town, and so really, when we are to talk, we need to be really quiet, because eventually someone's going to pick this up. And so, like, I really want to get to the big, fat question of what is to happen if anybody is to tick off the invisible man behind the curtain. Like, like, could anybody just, like, perform a crime and no one's gonna care? There's a dead body in a home and no one gives a about that. So, like, what if somebody just starts, like, murdering everybody in town? Like, are they gonna get stopped? Are they gonna get whatever? I don't know. Like, I don't think that's gonna happen. So, but anyways, so Ethan is talking to Beverly, and so Beverly is kind of giving him the 411 about this town, and how, like, how she's kind of been here for such a long time, and she thought that she actually did live here, because I guess her, like they told her she had a brain injury too, and that also she just assumed that, I guess, like, because, like, she was so like, weirded out or so whatever about this whole town, that she must have just thought that she lived here at first, but then eventually she's like, no, like, I'm remembering things, and this isn't quite what it seems. So, anyways, so Ethan makes his way to go to Kate, and evidently also Ethan is to have some kind of money here, and he is to eventually start to buy things. I guess Beverly, gave him money, or maybe the sheriff did. Anyways, so Ethan is to eventually go and talk to Kate and, like, supposedly buy something. But Ethan is to tell Kate, it's like, well, hey, like, I came into town to go and find you and Bill Evans, and it seems like only one of you are left alive, and I need to figure out why. And so Kate isn't really going to give Ethan answers, but in a roundabout way, she also is going to, because Kate is to mention that Ethan had a wife, and maybe you should go and, like, talk to her, kind of like, because Ethan has a wife. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, blah, blah, blah. So, all of a sudden, Ethan is to walk out of this toy store, and then all of a sudden he's to see the Fight Club rules. And so, all of a sudden, like, rule number 1 is, like, don't escape. Rule number 2 is don't even think about escaping. Rule number 3 is, like, just recite yourself rule number 1 and 2, because still you're not going to escape. No. The first rule is do not escape Fight Club, and the second rule is like do not talk about your past. And it seems like there was a number of different other bizarre rules that were also on this thing that like eventually we'll get to that somewhere, because eventually they'll be like rule number 4 blah 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 blah. Like you would have thought like somebody would have like tattooed this thing on everyone's arm so that way they would remember this, but I guess not. Like bizarrely there's only one part in town where there is this rule book, because I don't see this anywhere else in town. Like they framed it and they put it on top of some like opening of a building, but I guess it's not everywhere. Like it's coincidentally where the story needs you to know the rules is all of a sudden coincidentally when this thing is there. It makes no sense. Where it's like coincidentally when they have to talk about the rules. So, but then all of a sudden in this second episode, they're just really pressing this whole rules thing. Because eventually, Beverly is at a bar with Nurse Pam and the Arlene Moran, who is like the assistant to the sheriff. And so Beverly is like, yeah, like there's a lot of times that I have people just sit down and just kind of talk to me. And Nurse Pam is like, well, like you don't talk about their past now, do you, Beverly? And Beverly's like, well, of course not. No, I just kind of hear their woes like any bartender that would just be going and just washing any number of things, like washing the washing the bar up and just like, hey sailor, let me hear a story. Let me hear you spin yarn about any kind of number of things. So anyways, Ethan is to go off to find Bill Evans' wife. And so Ethan is like, hey, ma'am, like, could I talk to you about your husband? And so, like, this woman is like, no, I'm not really interested in talking about my husband. And Ethan is like, well, why aren't you interested in talking about your husband? Let me know that answer. And Evan Bates' wife is to mention that Evan had killed himself. And so it's like, okay, so like why did this guy go out of his way to off himself? That seems a little weird. Like, was this town getting too much from him? Did he get cornered? So anyways, like eventually both Ethan is making his way back to Beverly, and both Ethan and Beverly are kind of having the plan of like, dude, we're gonna freaking try to escape out of here. Beverly is to tell Ethan that there is some kind of tracker in his leg, and just go ahead and just like tear through and just knife up his entire leg to find where this tracker is. Just try to figure out where the heck this whole tracker thing, the whole situation. Just go ahead and just dig into your leg. So Ethan is to immediately find this tracker, and so Beverly says, hey, like, put this in your pocket, and one day you'll get good luck. Because what is going to happen is eventually Ethan is going to take this tracker somewhere and, like, leave it and then run off to, like, run the heck out of here. So while Ethan and Beverly are just kind of like walking around like the town, like talking about like what they're doing, eventually Ethan is to ask Beverly about what had happened to Evan, because it's like, I guess he had given his own life, and Beverly's like, no, like if anything, Sheriff Pope had sliced his throat. It's like, say what now? What? The sheriff is killing people? What is going on with this town? So, Ethan is making his way to Sheriff Pope, and is like, oh, hey, Sheriff. And the sheriff is like, hey man, like, if anything, like, I think I've cracked the case of the whole Bill Evans thing. Like, I think that this ice cream cone is, like, in this rum raisin ice cream is up to no good. And so, like, I think that I've narrowed down this case. Because we have, like, Arlene Moran, who's, like, going to the bar and mentioning, like, this Evan Burke guy is driving Sheriff Pope just crazy. And so, like, uh when Ethan is to show back up, like, Sheriff Pope is just like, I think that this ice cream is up to no good. I think I'm gonna arrest it. And so Sheriff Pope is telling Ethan, like, come on in, you're the next contestant on, I'm not gonna give you a lick of any answers, so come on in here, because I'm just gonna skirt around so many things. So the sheriff is to just, like, go and, like, and tell Ethan, it's like, you know what, like, why haven't you been in your hotel room? Like, Ethan did go into his hotel place to ask for a newspaper, and the guy mentions that there hasn't been a newspaper in 2 weeks because there has been nothing going on in town. And so, like, I'm assuming there's probably something going on with the newspaper man. Maybe he's dead. Or any number of things. But anyways, so Ethan is to confront the sheriff and just be like, yeah, like, if anything, I went to Kate, and then I went to, like, Bill Evans' wife, and, like, and all of this and that, and evidently Bill Evans' wife, like, had a baby, and Sheriff Pope is like, wait, Bill Evans' wife has a baby? I think now I have my number one culprit of all of this. All this Bill Evans stuff. I think it's the baby. I think the baby did it. And you know what? Ethan Burke just says, you know what? I think you're right. Let's cuff him. No. But he does blame the baby. He's like, this is, like, the weirdest episode, but I think it's hilarious. So Sheriff Pope is just going along and just hearing all the crap that Ethan Burke is to spew out about all the stuff that he learned while being in this town. And Sheriff Pope is like, well, that's all well and good, but, like, we're going to have, like, our big head honcho, like, people come in to inspect, like, Evan's body. Like, believe me, they're coming from, like, some other part of town to come into here to inspect this body. And so Ethan's like, okay, so it's in the morgue? Like, the body's in the morgue? And Sheriff Pope's like, yeah, exactly, it's in the morgue. And so Ethan Burke goes out of his way to go into the morgue to find there's only one body in the morgue, and it's not Bill Evans' body. If I said something else, like, so Burke is to go into the morgue, and Nurse Pam is to be there and just be like, hey, like, hey, good looking, what you got cooking? And so Nurse Pam is to tell, like, Ethan, it's like, well, hey, like, did you ever get a hold of your wife? Like, did you ever, like, get a hold of anybody when you called them? Like, I'm sure you would just love to go back to your wife so you can hump the crap out of her. And Ethan Burke is just like, yeah, I'll deal with you later. Like, you piece of anyways, so Ethan is to all of a sudden walk out, to all of a sudden see in this hallway both his son and his wife, like, being, like, carried into this place, like, via these doctor tables. And he's like, wait a minute, what? So he, like, starts running down this hallway to eventually find where his wife and his son is. And then all of a sudden he bumps into Dr. Jenkins. And so Ethan is like, hey, like, I just saw my wife and my son in this hospital. And Dr. Jenkins is like, we haven't had any new people come to this town in I don't know how long. And here's the thing. So, Teresa Burke was to not get a phone call from Burke, and because Ethan won't be able to call Teresa via this town, and eventually I'll get to that in a second, but Teresa is to mention that she is going to go to Ohio to find Burke because, like, he hasn't called. Like, what, did he just, like, decide that he just gave up on his family and then he's going to run away with nobody to Idaho? That seems very odd. And if that is actually the truth, then she's going to go there herself and kill him. And so that's like a part of this episode. So here's the thing. So Ethan is to go and, like, after talking to Dr. Jenkins and how, like, Dr. Jenkins is trying to, like, as much as possible to, like, skirt around everything and to basically just tell, like, Ethan, it's like, yeah, we've had no new people in here and I don't know what you're talking about. So, so Ethan is to try to make another phone call to either his Secret Service superior or also to try to just call home. And eventually he again gets a answering machine at his home. And so Ethan is to call the Secret Service office. And so all of a sudden he's calling this girl, and the same girl who was on the pilot episode when he called that place, same exact girl. And so Ethan is just like, hey, I'm here to talk to my superior. Can you transfer me over? And so the girl's like, yeah, like he's like he can't come to the phone right now, and like, but could I leave a message? And so Ethan is like, you know what, I'm gonna F with this girl. Like, hey, like, so, like, I'm just asking, just by curiosity, like you're at the one desk that is on the, like, 7th floor or something like that, right? Like, sure? Like, you can confirm where your location is? And so this girl is like, yeah, like, I'm on the 7th floor, I'm on this desk, and so on and so forth. And so Ethan is like, well, that's great, because that desk doesn't exist. So, who are you? Like, what garbage are you telling me? And then the woman just hangs up. She's like, I'm sorry, but I can't answer any more questions right now. I'm very busy. And then she kind of just hangs up the phone. So Ethan is just like, mother, these people are just skirting around everything. They're just putting on a big fat skirt and just like, yeah, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, just skirting around. So. But that leads just Ethan and Beverly to just start walking around town, and they eventually bump into both Kate and her husband, who is to be Harold. And so Kate is like, oh, like, you and Beverly, like, it looks like you two might be like a couple, because eventually when Ethan was with Kate at her little toy shop, Kate was to mention that her and Harold are being, like, very intimate together and engaged and all this and that. And so Ethan was like, yeah, I remember a time when you or me were very intimate too. Just be like, yeah, just twist the knife. Just stab him a little bit and then just start twisting. But anyways, so Kate and Harold are seeing, like, Ethan and Beverly there, and they're just like, well, hey, like, how about all four of us just go on like, a little, like, date together, technically? Like, you guys can come to my house, we can cook you some good food, and, like, we can just have a good time, you know? We can just have a good time. And so Ethan and Beverly are like Beverly, like, and Ethan's like, sure, we would love to, because we're going to plan our escape after that. Yeah, like... That's not exactly what Ethan said, but good God, would that just be a tempting thing to do? So Ethan, after, like, Kate and Harold are off to the side, Ethan is telling Beverly, it's like, dude, we're gonna plan our escape. Like, I know a place where we can get the heck out of here, and, like, I think there's an easy way to just get out of this town, supposedly. Yeah, there's gonna be such an easy way to get out of this town. And so Ethan is telling Beverly that they can just put their trackers and just leave them into the home that they're in, and then just get the heck out of here and run off. And so Beverly is like, okay, this sounds like a really solid plan. So both Beverly and Ethan are to go and have dinner at Kate's home. And so eventually, like, Ethan had told Beverly that eventually he's going to go into the bathroom and just start, like, checking things out. So Ethan and Beverly are to like go back into the table, and then Beverly is to go and go into the bathroom. And so Ethan is saying, like, yeah, like, Beverly is having a real, like, sensitive stomach lately, and it seems like she's having some stomach issues. It seems like bad tummy, you know? So eventually Kate has been in the bathroom for quite a while, and so Kate is like, you know what, should I go after her? And Ethan is like, no, like, let me go and do it, because I won't hear the end of it if I don't go in there and just check. So Ethan goes, and then he comes back, and he's like, you know what, like, man, like, Beverly's stomach is just really rumbly-tumbly, you know? Like, she's just really she's not feeling good. Like, it probably had nothing to do with the food. It probably just was, like, nerves or something, I think. So, like, the nerves of this whole first date, you know? Like, just tearing her up inside. So, so both Ethan and Beverly are just kind of, like, leaving the home. And so we have Harold that turns to Kate, and and Harold asks Kate, it's like, do you think that they're going to escape? And Kate is just like, yeah, they're going to escape. So so both Ethan and Beverly are, like, trying to get out of here and try to book it and get out of here. And so all of a sudden, every single phone in this town, all this is ringing. And, like, one of the rules of Fight Club of this town is to, if there's a phone, you need to answer it every single time, no matter what. Meaning that probably you're going to get, like, some command from, like whoever the F. Maybe it's an alien, maybe it's, I don't know. But anyways, so all of a sudden, all the phones in all the towns are going off. And so Ethan is to tell Beverly, it's like, make a run for it. I'm going to, like, distract people, and you're just going to get the heck out of here. And so Ethan, like, is to, like, see all these kinds of people just kind of, like, looking for Beverly. Like, hey, where's Beverly? Like, hey, I just so happen to be looking for her. Like, hey, what's going on? Is Beverly here? And so, like, everybody in town is bizarrely looking for Beverly. And eventually they sadly do find her. And then eventually Beverly goes, and now we find out what actually happens in this town when there is an outcast or whichever among them. So people are to grab Beverly, and so the Sheriff Pope is to grab Beverly and take her and just slit her throat in front of everyone to, like, showcase, it's like, yeah, that's what happens when you break the rules in this town. That's what happens when you talk about the past. That's what happens when you, like, don't pick up the phone when it rings. That's what happens when you like, try to escape. And so Sheriff Pope is just slicing frickin' Beverly's throat, sadly enough. And so Ethan is just forcibly just there to watch. Like, there's nothing he can do. And so, like, Ethan tried to escape, but nobody's after him, bizarrely. Maybe, like, Ethan is going to, like, sneak away or whichever. But yeah, like, that's the way of which that this, like, episode just kind of, like, fizzles out. There might be a detail here or there that I didn't cover, but other than that, yeah, like, that's what happens with this town, interestingly enough. So I'm like, oh my god, so eventually people aren't going to play along. Man, are they not going to be playing for very long. So the show is getting really interesting. I'm really getting, like, I'm really gonna get into it, but like, who knows when eventually I'll cover the next one of these episodes. Like, I'm also wanting to get back into Outcast, that show, not the band, Outcast. I also wanted to get back into Outcast, and eventually I will get there, because I thought that that show was like, there's a lot of like, it's kind of a very dark show. It's a very dark show. That's why I just say dark so weirdly dark. But if anything, like, I'm just kind of interested in it, bizarrely, just because I'm like, okay, why did Robert Kirkman do this show? Outcast, not this one, Outcast. So I hope to eventually get back into doing Outcast, but eventually that might not happen. But eventually I hope to do that again. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.